Hey, welcome back. We're going to talk about surfaces in Emery your work. After you have sawed out your piercings and your outside shapes, or use the bench shear for that, this one's not quite finished, but after you have finished doing all of your sawing, you're ready to move on and to the filing, and after you finish the filing, you're ready to move on to the surface work of the Emery, which goes from 400 to 600 to 1,000. This is where we're heading right now. 400 is the rougher of those three grits. You always work roughest to finest. If you find that you get to 1,000 and you still have deeper scratches, then you'll need to go all the way back and start that process over. Now, Emery paper that we use, we just kind of cut down into sheets that are about this size. They have the label on the back, so if this were a 1,000 grit Emery, it would have 1,000 on there. We do have a couple of different color-coded Emery papers that you might see in the room. This one is 1,000 grit. We're kind of testing this out to see. This is 600. On the back counter, in between the drill press and the sink, there will be these boxes that are labeled, and this is for new Emery paper. So once you take what you need, let's say you need a piece of 400 Emery paper. Once you take that and you're using it, and if you use part of it, go ahead and leave that in your box because you'll be using it again. Once the Emery paper is completely worn out, then you can kind of get rid of that and throw that away. So the process is pretty simple. I do ask that you take a scrap piece of paper, just go through the recycling bin and find a scrap piece of paper, lay it on your table surface. If you want to work on your V-board, that's fine too, but sometimes you don't have a big enough surface to work. One of the ways you can do this to get some pressure Emery against your piece is to put your piece on the table, on that scrap piece of paper, and you're going to go ahead and put pressure down. One hand is holding the piece in place, and the other hand is getting pressure with the Emery on the piece itself. So that's where I kind of did some of that Emery, and it looks pretty shiny, looks pretty consistent, but you want to be very careful with evaluating when you're done with the 400, when you're moving on to the 600. If you have some deeper scratches in here, you may end up working in circles. You may end up coming across and going this way. You will see scratches in it. And the most common question I get is, why would I want to scratch my metal up? And what you're doing really is you're putting scratches that are not as deep as the ones that you're getting rid of. So I have some really, really deep scratches that are coming in right here. That's going to take some significant amount of pressure and Emerying, and this just is time. So go ahead and put your music in and just kind of get in the groove and go to town with this. And you just want to continue to do this until it kind of feels and looks like silk, like the surface of almost melted chocolate. It's really, really, really smooth in here. And the way that you can tell if you're ready to move on is you kind of turn it to the side, and if you have any scratches that are deeper than the scratches that were left by this particular grit that you're using, then you need to go back in those areas and continue to get rid of those scratches before you move on. You will spend 90% of your Emerying time with 400. The other 10% is going to be 600 and 1,000. Couple of things to make your life a little easier. If you have, so I have this curves, you're Emerying your edges as well. I could take some wood mandrels. We've got some round ones, some toothpicks on that back counter, and I also have wood blocks on that back counter that you can use to help get pressure. Because when you do this, after a while, your thumb is going to start to protest. So if I want, I could just as easily wrap this around here. And this actually works much better for the curved surfaces. So I can come in here, up against the table or the V-board. And I'm going to, with the Emery, get rid of the evidence that my file left, just like the file is getting rid of the evidence that your saw frame was doing the cutting. So your goal is to have a perfectly smooth surface without any evidence of file marks in there. So you want to continue to do that. Sometimes you need to either rip or cut a piece of this Emery, and you can fold it over this. That helps you get some pressure. If you needed to get into smaller areas like this, you can do that. If you have larger areas to work on that are flat, you can use that split mandrel on the Fordham. That does not work very well with curved surfaces. So if I wanted to emery this curved surface, this is not a good choice on that because there's not a lot of contact on there because it is curved. These are two bits on the Fordham that you might see being used, and these are similar to a 400 grit emery, but they don't have a lot of surface. This one doesn't have a lot of surface contact. So if I was going to go in and emery this, I could do more damage than good. I would just end up leaving little teeny grooves as I was trying to emery that out. But this right here might work if you have a problematic area where you have deeper scratches, you're having a hard time getting to it. Just kind of keep that moving on the Fordham and go from there. Once you've decided that you're ready to move on, you'll move up to the next finest grit. So again, we were working with 400. And this is pretty far from being ready to move on, but I'm going to kind of pull in another one here that has been working on 1000. So this, if you take a look at kind of the side right here, we're pretty close to being good to go if I was ready to move on to the polishing. So pre-polish and then final polish to put a high shine on that. Some of you guys might decide that you want this satin finish. You want the satin finish left by the 400 emery paper. Maybe you want the satin finish left by the 1000. Maybe you've decided to roll mill your, put a texture into your piece. Now the roll mill, the benefit of roll milling it is it really gets rid of all of those scratches when you put it through the roll mill. So it minimizes the need for emery work. As long as you keep your surfaces consistent, you're doing just fine. It doesn't matter which of those that you choose to leave for your final piece. It's a visual choice that you make that goes with your design. This piece is slated to be a ring. The next step, I need to form this so that it's actually round, so it functions like a ring. If I do all of my emerying all the way through 1000 and then I go and I hammer it to form it into a circular shape, I will leave some indentations and need to go back and do some more emery work. So my suggestion to you is you might want to do your forming first, or you might want to get through 400, then form it, and then move for 600 and 1000. And once you have formed your ring, you will definitely need to use one of the Fordham bits to get in there, or one of these round supports, wood supports, to get on the inside, because that's really hard to do just using your thumb to get in there to emery that. You'll see longer emery sticks right here. So if you have a bigger piece, I can turn that upside down and I can go back and forth. The key is pressure. If you are not getting a lot of pressure on that, you're just spinning your wheels, wasting your time. So make sure you have some pretty significant pressure on there. I can also go this way and work on the emery stick. And again, that kind of saves your thumb from that. So a reminder, you're moving from roughest to finest. We now have been through sawing, filing, emery work, and next up is the polishing. Until next time, bye-bye.